Hello and welcome to this month's Scriptcase project. My name is Jamie and I am your host. And as you see on your screen today, I'm starting off with inside of a project and, well, you may not understand entirely what this here means. And it means sending email. And today I'm going to show you how you can create a control application that sends email that also includes chart images as well as a PDF application with those chart images. Okay, so it is a pretty straightforward application and it is a single application. But there is, of course, quite a bit to it. So let's make a start and have a look at some of the initial requirements, or the database table, as well as then the API, which will be used for this project. So up here in Tools, we have here our API options, and opening that up, we have here one API which has been attached to this project. And it is using an SMTP gateway. And if I just check those details, you'll see here that we have the email settings all set up and added in there. Now, you will, of course, need to add an API. So you just add a new one here. You can add a name for it and then just adjust it within the code that is provided within this application. Now you then fill it in, add your server, your ports, your protocol, username, password, the from email address, as well as the from name, and just save that. And just like that, you have added a SMTP API gateway into your application, or your project, should I say. Now, with Scriptcase, you of course have many other API options. You have here some for payments, for storage, for authentication, and so forth. So do check those out. They are all fully functional and very capable, and believe me, make your development life much easier for sure. Okay, so with that, we can then go ahead and close our API because we will be using that within this project. And not only that, we also have a database. So up here within the menu, we have our database and then the database builder. So if I open that up, we can quickly check out the database. And the reason why I'm reusing this project is because I'm having to use the online version. Okay, so it is important that your application is online and has your SSL certificate attached, which locally I do not, because I actually created this locally at first and then found, yes, I need to have the SSL certificate, and for that I would need to publish it online. There we go again. So it's all fair and good, but I typically would have to set up a testing environment that then on one of my live locations, which I just don't have available right now. Okay, so within this massive database, this is a big database, but we're only going to have two tables from this, okay? Because I've pasted them into this table because otherwise I had no database access here on the live session. I couldn't find the login details. So for that reason, I'm reusing this project. And here I've added then the orders table. Okay, so we will be using this table, which then, of course, includes some data concerning some orders. Okay, with that, we then also have here the suppliers table. So when you download this project, because I will export this as a project, okay, because then you'll have both of the applications, the Spanish version, so the original, as well as then the English version. Now, the Spanish version won't work because you won't be having those tables. So do be aware of that, but you will have there also the original code, which may be my adjusted code may help you better because, as you'll see, it is going to be in English. Okay, so with our suppliers table, we have some suppliers in here, and as you see, we have some example data there of various suppliers. So these are the two tables that will be included with this project and that are also used. So to start with, I will begin by creating a new application, and that will be a control application, okay? And I will just rename the control. In fact, I'll leave the control so we know it's a control, and I'll call it _email _chart.js, okay? Because we will be using also a library. So before I continue with the application, let me show you also the library that we will be using. So again, up here in Tools, we have also external libraries. And with the external libraries, we can really make a big difference with our Scriptcase development. So at the bottom here, I've scrolled all the way down. Here we have our project libraries, and here I have the sw_chart PHP library. And if I go ahead and edit that, we will have the related files. Okay, so those you will have to also import. They will also be included with the project separately, so you will have those there also. And of course, you can just create your own new library, or as I am, reusing the project and using this as a starting point, which is probably not something you'd want to do because, of course, well, it is a very short project. Okay, so I've set the width to 100%, I've aligned it to the top, and I've also set the inputs to 100%. So if I run this now, it's going to give me an error, of course, because I have not defined my fields yet. I need to first define my fields because it is a control form after all. So if I come here to new field, I'll go one field because that is all we need today. And I will call that the email field. And I would change the data type, or the type as it's indicated here, as email, and click the create button. And just like that, I have then my field. I will adjust here the title so that it says email, and let's add address on there, and like so. And as the initial value, I will set a defined value as the initial value, and here I will type in my email address, help@scriptcase.com. And I have here the amount of characters. Now, because we've set the 100% width of the email field, or all fields, we don't really need to adjust this, but otherwise I would actually adjust this to maybe 80 or 120 so that the field for the email address is nice and wide. At 10, it would be a tiny little box. Well, not a tiny box. 5 would be a tiny box, or 2, of course, but 10, it's not really very wide for an email address. Now at the bottom here, we have also the maximum size. Now, I noticed in the original project this was missing, but we do have the initial value there. So it is important that you do set this, okay? So increase that to the maximum value that you have for the field, which for this field would typically be around 250 characters, which should be plenty for an email address. And that will then also stop any errors from you adding a long email into that field. Okay, so if I go ahead and run the control application now, we just have here one field with my email address in there, and okay, and an exit button. Of course, yes, I'm sorry. It's going to be in the original language of this project. So, well, we could maybe change that, couldn't we? So if I come here to properties, and here we have locals, and here we have Brazilian Portuguese. Okay, so I will add another language in here. And let's say, let me find English up here, English, add, and we change that to default, and change that also to UTF-8. Save that, and just like that, the default language will now be in English. So if I now go ahead and run the control application, well, we still have everything in Portuguese. Let's come into here again, and of course, we have here the language variables are defined, but our application is more than likely in Brazilian. That's the way it's set. So we need to change that. So we can do that here in the settings. And then here in the settings, we can then adjust here the language and save that to English United States. Press play. And there we now have the buttons and the titles and everything in English. Okay, so just like that, we've made that quick adjustment. Now I will change here the toolbar because I really am not a fan of that. Okay, and exits, I will say cancel because we would generally cancel this sort of action. And here we would say send email. Let me add the capital M as well. There we go. And save that again, run the application, and just like that, we now have the cancel button over here instead of exit, and also send email as our confirm button over here. And that will then, of course, provide our action. Okay, so here we have our events, and in our events, well, we can do lots of magical things. So we will want to use here the onValidate success. Okay, but before we do that, we may want to actually create, first of all, the methods that we will be using, because we will be using 3 methods in this. And here we have then our first method, and the first one will be called getClientsGraph. And then the second method will be called getOrdersGraph. And then the final method will be then just sendEmail. Okay, like so. And then we have our 3 methods here, so we can reference them here on our onValidate success. And just with that then, we already have a fully functional application. We just need to add now the functions or capabilities that we want it then to perform. For instance, being a control form, if we want to insert this email address into the database, then we can very easily do so using some of the example code over here, or of course write our own code and have this also update in a table. In this video, I'm sorry, we won't be doing that. So we have here our onValidate success, and the first thing I want to do is first of all initialize the variables for these graphs for the clients as well as the orders that we have at the bottom here. GetClientsGraph, getOrdersGraph. Okay, so that's what we're doing here, and we're actually assigning these to a variable. Okay, and then after that, what we want to do is then basically give that into an array. Okay, so we're placing both of these, the client's graph and the orders graph, or essentially our 2 methods here, which we will create in a few moments, and we're placing those into a new variable, and that then essentially becomes an array of images. Okay, so with that, the next thing we want to do then is go ahead and create a new PDF instance. So we have TCPDF within Scriptcase, so we can grab it at any point and use it within our application. So to do that, we just need to go PDF equals new TCPDF in brackets, or brackets after the TCPDF, sorry. And with that, you are basically initializing the PDF functionality. Okay, so with that then, we need to then add our content to a new page. So basically, we're now creating a PDF. So here we are initializing it, and here we're now creating a page for that PDF, because otherwise it's just a PDF. There's nothing in it. What is it? Okay, so with that, what we want to do then is add the graphs that we have into the PDF. So we do that by adding these 2 lines here. So we add another PDF variable here. So you see with PDF, 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 PDF. Okay, note that it all becomes one really long PDF essentially. Okay, and that is then how it is then created. So we add then here our image, and we have here then again our client's graph and orders graph. We're setting the positioning, the image type, and a load of false. Okay, and with that, we then also go ahead and define the directory where we would like to save this PDF. So this would essentially be a monthly report, and that's what we've just indicated it as. It is then essentially a monthly report of processes or information that we are going to retrieve here in our other 2 methods. So right here now, we're just grabbing our methods, creating our PDF, and placing our methods into our PDF. Okay? And of course, as you see, creating it like this will keep your code much easier to manage, as well as allow you to really play with your processes. So once we've done that, we've defined our directory, we've basically saved the PDF document with our 2 images, and then, well, we need to then actually save that into the PDF directory. So that is then what we are doing here. We're outputting that then to the PDF directory. And then finally, after that, we want to send our email. Okay, so we will then be using here our send email method, passing here the directory as well as then the image paths. And with that, well, essentially our array of images. Okay, so that's what that is. And with that, we then pass that information over to our email, place that into our email, and then send that off. Okay, so let's then add one more functionality here. We want to then really, show an alert once that has all, functioned. So with that, we just use here the SC-AJAX JavaScript macro, and we can show an alert. And that is pretty much what will happen there. So if I go ahead and save that, we can then continue on here with our methods. Okay, so within our get clients graph, we have then here our graph, and what we want to do then is set some states and some totals, and they equal, well, nothing right now. So we are basically setting those to 0. All right. And then once we've done that, we then create a little query. Now, of course, as many of you know, I would be writing a lot of this by hand, but yes, this would not be a 40, 50-minute video. It would then be an hour and a half, 2-hour video. And yes, I'd rather explain. I've updated all the code for you, as you'll see, compared to the original. We have comments everywhere, and I've tried to explain everything as much as possible. So what we're doing here in our next part here is then selecting data from our database, okay? And then we are basically counting the suppliers and grouping them by state, okay? And then what we want to do is, after our record set here, place those into a JSON encoded array again, okay? So we have then basically our states and our totals here, and those we then have then combined. And of course, that will then be passed on to our, well, Chart.js script. So let's go ahead and include our library then, because we want to then, of course, grab here our project library. So PRJ for project, that is where our library is located. We have then also the SW Chart.js PHP library, which is the name of the library. So we could come here to tools and external libraries and double check that again, SW_chart PHP, okay, and that is then here what we have there. And what we're doing is then running here the autoload.php, which is then also here available within our library, okay. So with that, we then grab our library, and then what we need to do is actually configure our chart. So we start doing that by adding the following piece of code here. So this is basically the configuration of the chart. We create a new object, quick chart. We assign a width, height, the version, as well as the background color to this chart. Then we have the rest of our configuration here, and here we set a bar chart. We have here labels for the states, as well as then the data set, which then is a label, background color, border width, and then the data, which is essentially here our totals. We have some options that we can apply, as well as then plugins that we can also apply. Now, I would highly recommend checking out Chart.js. So if I Google Chart.js, or Bing Chart.js, should I say, and come here to the Chart.js documentation, we have here a load of samples, and we can see here, for instance, the bar charts. And we have here the configuration for that, as well as the setup that is then required in those cases, and then actions that are available. Now you have that for line charts, for other charts. There's loads of different charts here, and there are many other samples. So do check that out. And of course, you have the API here if that's something you wanted to use. But otherwise, just go to the samples, and pretty much you have the code within this application. You just need to change here your data set, the configuration. Okay, and with that, then you will then also be able to create or adjust this for your applications. So you have that then here, that is then the configuration here, and that then generates the chart as we want it to be displayed. So to actually finish that off, we need to set our configuration here, and that is then all placed here within our config array here, or variable should I say, and then that, of course, we need to generate. So let's do that and save this chart also as an image within the following directory as, of course, the clients by state PNG. And of course, you can adjust the name of that or even the location from the previous the onValidate success. There we had the directory specified, and there you can also change the directory. You can change the names of the images that you want assigned and so forth. Now, of course, once these images are generated, they will be generated within the temporary folder and then more than likely placed into the image folder if stored. Okay, so the get orders graph. So this is going to be very similar to the previous one, but of course we're going to have a slightly different chart here. So here we have 3 values, and that is for states, order values, as well as then the freight values. So here we again have our select, which is then again grabbing our fields. So we have the recipient state, the sum, which is then here the order value, or sum of the order value, should I say, the sum of the freight value, and that is then grouped by the recipient state here again. Now, with that, we output those again and encode those, and we are then ready, of course, for our chart. So with our library again added, we again go ahead and configure our chart. So I'm just going to copy paste the whole snippet here this time. And this time we have here our configuration. So again, we're using the quick chart object to define our initial values for the chart. Okay, so that gives us then here the width and the height, the version number, and the background color of our chart. And then we have our data set. So that is what is then within here, the configuration, which you can then see here within the Chart.js documentation. So here you have the configuration for a line chart, for instance, and then you just need to adjust it accordingly. Okay, so again, we have here our data sets for this chart, for this line chart, as well as then the options. We have the configuration again, which we then combine and collect. And at the bottom here, once again, we generate and save that chart as an image. Okay, so with that, we just return, and we are then, of course, ready for our send email. So with our send email, the first thing we need to do is initialize all of those files that we've just created, so the 2 images, into an array as a main file. So it's pretty much what we're doing here. We have here our attached files, which initially there are none, and then we push that into an array and collect them. Okay, so then we have here our email configuration, which is pretty straightforward because we are using the API. And it is the easiest way to send an email, that is for sure. You do have the options here, examples to send a simple email. They're great and they function beautifully, okay? But this is, of course, then the quickest and easiest way to send an email. So we set up our configuration for our API array, or settings, should I say, because it is basically an array of our API settings. So we choose here, first of all, our profile. We have here HTML that we can include, or text, which we have placed here. We have here the email to field, which indicates here our field, the attached files, which we have up here, and then the subject, which is then the monthly sales report. So with that, we use then our Scriptcase. It says function. Let me change that. Well, it is a function, isn't it? So SC send mail API, and I'm going to change it to macro. I can't help myself. So macro instead of a function, because it's either, but at the same time, really, it's SC underscore. It's a Scriptcase macro. So do be sure also to check out here the help documentation. And of course, now I have it in Portuguese, which is great. But of course, if you have your Scriptcase in English, you will have your help documentation in English. So do check that out. And then you will have here also the information on how to set that up, as well as some examples for sending emails using the Scriptcase macro and API setups. Okay, so with our methods now applied, let's return back here to our onValidate success. So we're calling here the get clients graph, where we are selecting data from our database and then generating that graph. the first one, and then we have the get orders graph, which we have just set up. And then at the bottom here, we have here the send email method. Okay, so if I go ahead and run that, let's see if that works, because I have not tried it out online yet. So I'll go send, and there I have failed opening required libraries auto load. And well, let's go ahead and generate our project. So let's generate the entire project. So that can sometimes happen. And at the same time, let's also make sure we have here the names correct, because as I said, I actually set it up locally. So it's sw_chart.php. And in here, what did we have? Once we have the library, where did I have the library to? Okay, so get charts graphs, we have that in here. Yeah, see, I had adjusted that for my local version. Okay, so I'll save that. So that is then updated with the actual external library. And if anybody saw that, bonus points to you. Okay, so while we're at it, let's also make sure that I have here the API correctly set. And there, of course, I have the profile also configured for my local environment. So let's change that to the SW, which is what we had up here for the API. So let's confirm that. There is the profile name, SW. So with that placed in there, well, we should nearly be there. Okay, so we still have some important, well, something to add here, which is typically something that I would forget. And if you know what I'm talking about, or if you don't, be sure to go check out Scriptcase by Jamie, which is my own channel. And there I have created a video or some videos specifically on some of the items that I typically forget to do. So before I forget to do that today, let's make sure we come up here to the attributes and make sure that we are able to pass these images and the location of those images to here our send email function. Because without that, well, we would get an error message. Okay, so the first one we want is then file, which then gives us our path. So I will save that. And that is then here, you see that there, file. And the next one we want is here, the image. So I will add that in there also. I will go add, and that is an image, and then save that. And then just like that, if I now go ahead and run the application, we can start to actually go ahead and send an email. We now have no error messages. Everything is looking good there. So I just have to now really check. Oh, it sounds like I just got an email. And there I have now the monthly sales report. So let me drag that over here. If I can drag that out. Yes, I can drag that out. So here we have now our email. That was nice. Okay, and that has here our monthly report. And we should have some images on here. For some reason, they've gone super wide, or they are not attached. So let's have a look here in our PDF. Well, they are in fact in our PDF, so they are correctly attached here. It's possibly just the way here the Thunderbird is actually displaying the email. Okay, so we have then our images also attached then into a PDF. And of course, we could do a lot more to this and actually, add some content in here. Hello, thank you very much for your email, blah, 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 as you please. So let's return then back to our project. So this is pretty much working then. And of course, we have that then sending our email. So let's just go over that one more time very quickly, because I think really we should maybe spend a lot more time here in the Chart.js documentation. Because, I pointed out that we have here the samples, we have here some scriptable options, we have here some utilities also, and we can actually really use what is available here on the Chart.js website to really, beef up or create, should I say, some really nice charts. And there's the step-by-step guide in here. You have also the general information where you have some options in here, how to perform the data structures, how to improve performance. For the configuration, you have responsive charts and you can add animations and so much more. So do check those out. And everything that we have here, just pay attention, it's the same config as we have here. So it's nearly identical. Okay, and then the setup of the data, here you have then the labels and of course then the data set, which is then applied there, and you just need to adjust that according to your own requirements. And with that, you have then the capability of adding already 2 charts, and of course you could go ahead and add more charts in here and send them all by email if you please. Okay, so be sure that you do check out how to add the APIs or libraries. If you do not know how to, there are a load of videos of those available here on the Scriptcase channel, as well as over on my own. So do be sure to check those out. And at the same time, you know, like I said, check out those don't forget videos, because there's always something that one forgets. And this little attribute button up here, this is for sure one of them, because yes, it even fooled me once again during this project. Because that's what it does. It's hidden away up here. It's not indicated anywhere that it has been applied. So do be sure to, you know, always check these parameters that are maybe assigned on some of these methods when you copy those projects that we have, of course, created in the past in many of those other videos. Okay, so that is it for this week. I hope you have enjoyed this video, and of course, be sure to download this project. All of the files will be available to you, and you will be able to replicate it, copy it, import it, reuse it, and of course abuse it in your own project. So thank you very much for watching, and my name is Jamie, and this is Scriptcase. And until the next video.